Hello my comrades, I'm AZ, the senior moderator of Voxel Town, but you could call me Jazz. New Voxton is a city project I'm planning to make the largest and most realistic city on the server, block by block. It's going to be awesome. Join me on my journey to create, explore new ways of building, get inspiration, and design landscapes that you have never seen before in Minecraft. So let's get into it. My city is located in the Bay Area, where the sun shines, the water and climate are cool, and natural beauty surrounds the cities. New Voxton, located near the city of Oakland, the centerpiece of attention and the tech hub of the region. It's more than San Jose. It takes inspiration from many places in the United States, mainly New York City, San Francisco, and Chicago, with the green landscape of California and Oregon. I have worked on the city project for over 3 years with the Voxel Town community. We have been planning this since early 2022 and we continue to plan into the future. After a failed attempt to make a realistic city in the past, we have been coming up with ideas of how to make a walkable, beautiful city as an example of what real cities can be in the United States. I wanted to recreate Times Square in New Voxton to create a centerpiece of entertainment. You might say it's another New York City or Las Vegas, and perhaps that's true. The difference is that it has a West Coast vibe set in the Golden State where opportunities can be had from the tech hub to the climate. Enough chit chat, let me show you what I have built and planned. The first one I am starting is the One Front Street building, a bank and office building located in San Francisco. I got started on laying out the base of each building out of wool, figuring out the space I was dealing with and how this could work. It surprised me that the plot was big enough for all of them, so I didn't have to make the plot bigger or smaller, nor have to change the roads that didn't align with the previous road. Thank God for that. Once I was finished, I got started on the underground parking garage immediately, since I wanted to get a head start. Once done, I headed back to the surface and started upscaling the building, making sure I had all the measurements correctly of how I wanted to look based on sketch plans and the real building. It took a while, but it was better to be safe than sorry. Anyway, I already got started with the layout of the interior, making sure to have important rooms such as employees, break rooms, mail rooms, lounge areas, and bathrooms, and enough room for the elevator shafts and stairways, as you should always have. If you want to learn more, then I suggest you check out Alpine's video for more information. He's a great builder and architect, and I will link his channel down in the description. So anyway, after I placed windows with glass panes, but later on I made an error of having the windows too wide between each pane of glass, so I had to change to every other one. Moving on to placing wool on the future flooring and design of the actual building. The green wool is the cube angle design, and the light blue is angled. However, I didn't know what I wanted to look like. I was experimenting, so I asked a few people on the Discord server, and that will be linked in the description if you want to check it out. And well, one of them said number 1 of 2 of the pictures I have sent, and another one said number 2, and you probably will see it in the pictures later on in the video. I decided to do number 1 and see how it turned out, and I'm so glad I didn't second guess myself, and also did the same for the other side of where the key windows are in as the white wool. Once I was finished, I was trying out the blocks that could work for the ceiling lobby, and I tried these three and worked very well. Then I got started working on the office layout, first starting with bathrooms and planning out the rest of the interior. For the office, meetings in private offices, and for the second floor I just added only the office itself entirely with a lounge area and the same on the third floor above. So enjoy the time lapse. Then I went back to do a 3-story parking garage, and time consuming it was because I had to go back and forth with fixing and rerouting the ramps to make sure that they could go down without them interfering with the elevator shafts and stairways. So when that mess was done, I stacked it down the elevator stairs to each level of the parking garage. I also did the same with the second and third levels, including adding a 4th level. Once done, I replaced the temporary blocks with their proper blocks, and lastly finishing off the loading bay. The next thing I did after that was to stack the wool to the building height. Then I sketched out the rooftop and balconies too. Although I had to make a few changes to the balconies, it was going well according to plan. I stacked the floors near the top of where the balconies are and started slowly to fix the interior of each floor, since it was becoming smaller the more I went up, but that is all for that. And now lastly, doing the roof of the building, I added the usual such as HVAC equipment and moved up the stairway to the roof, which to my surprise fitted perfectly. Once finished, I changed the wool of the interior and exterior, and the first was polished diorite, and then I switched to the smooth quartz since it looked a lot better than the polished diorite and more realistic. So that's done for that building, and time to do the second. The beginning of this building may look simple to you, but really was not. I took reference from the TWMC in Los Angeles, and although I was building on a smaller scale compared to the one in real life, eventually this has taken some time to do, including not having enough room for a parking garage entrance due to the limited space I have for the build and the plans I have for the area. So they will have to go to other public parking garages that are nearby, or of course use transportation. When I was done with the exterior, I moved on to adding 3 entrances on both sides of the building and 1 extra one on the left side. After the layout of the interior was completed, I first added the elevator shafts and stairways. I kept trying to find innovative designs that could work for the interior. I lastly found one that could work, then everything else came together. Lastly, finding the appropriate blocks for the look for the lobby. Then I moved on to the second floor, whereas I did the same from previous office building. Although it was smaller than I expected, and it was very cramped when trying to do the interior on the floors, as it was not easy to do, but I managed to pull it through. Meanwhile, I was done with both floors, but I was having some trouble with the windows because of the spacing between each floor, and the ceiling was confusing me. So that did take a while until I figured out later. After doing that, I placed the orange wool to set the height for the building, including sketching out the roof and future flooring while I was trying to build from reference to the real building. However, I also took inspiration from a building in Philadelphia, at least the top section of the building, and I tried to produce my design later in the time lapse. Then when I finished with the sketching part, I built one side, then pasted over the other half, and the same for the front and back of the building. However, the process of stacking the floors on the roof was slow and I was suffering from it, but I was able to pull it through and finish the section of the building. And finally, I made it to the top, and I laid out the wool to mark where everything would go, and I included a helipad on top, just like the real building, and I thought it'd be a good addition too. Plus, I asked one of our members to build one later. Indeed, it was a slow process of trying to complete the roof, but I was able to push it through while it was very late at night. I believe it was around 2 to 3 a.m. Although it was worth completing the building, and I enjoyed the results that speak for themselves. Now for the next building, I have already planned this spot where I marked out of Whitewall that is going to be a historic building, and I wanted it to make it stand out from the rest of the buildings that surround it. Although finding the right fit for the building was a bit challenging and what it will look like as well, but I did not know what could work for that spot until I stood upon it. When searching through my saved building list I had to build for future use in the city. Luckily for me, I remember one building in downtown Philadelphia where the large roundabout it was at, and I thought to myself this would be a perfect building for the spots for the size where I had my selection out of Whitewall. However, finding the heights took even more time since I was struggling to find a name, so I could find the actual height to scale it to 1.5.1 scale like the rest of the city is. Luckily, my friend of mine on Discord gave me the idea to use the photos to try to find the name. Finally, the name of it is the Parkway Central Office, but it also goes by other names. So then, after I finished my research, I moved on to building the Parkway Central Office, or PCO for short. The process was going smooth, and I tried to add a good amount of detail, but not overdo it too much so that it would ruin the building, but good enough to surprise you with how simple it is. Next, when I got to the white top section of the building, it proved to be difficult, as you will see me trying different methods to do the pillars on the walls and the building trim as well. But once I got it figured out, I copied everything and pasted to the other sides of the building to make the process faster and easier for me. Afterwards, I got started on building the roof, and before I got working on the roof, I wanted it to make it more unique compared to the real life building, so it would not be a full copy, but more that it could fit within the area of its time that was set in. In other words, it could have existed in real life. So before I continued to build, I instead sketched it in my sketchbook on how I thought it would look in the city. Later, you will see on the screen that it is the building I wanted to try to recreate into the city. While I finished my sketch, I continued building in the game, and I was having some struggle on the roof parts, although I asked another friend of mine, Doggo, to help me with the window rooftop, and while he was working on that, I was working on the front part of the building, designing how it will look like and adding my own features to it. And when I was done, and so was he, I was completely satisfied with both of our parts that we did on the rooftop. And when the part was finished, I got started on the actual rooftop, and while building this section, it was quite astonishing to see what I have used for reference from real life and what I had drawn in my sketchbook. Once done, I added the entrance in the front of the building, and once the whole building was completed, I can happily say that I'm enormously proud of building this masterpiece. After that build, I moved on to another office building and trying to recreate the one in Chicago. And as you will know if you are watching my videos, I have posted on my channel that the building you are seeing is the same building I have used for inspiration from the other video, which will be on the top right of your screen if you want to check it out. And just the thought of rebuilding it again, but a mix of the two buildings, one from San Francisco and this time mostly based in Chicago. I also had help from a couple of people here and there from the community, and the process of the building was enjoyable too, especially building the parking garage, which was a fun little project that the way I did with the driveway for it that you will see later in the video. At this time of recording, sadly, one of our architect members of the community was spending time in Japan, and he received a call from his family relatives at home, telling him that his dog Coco has passed away, and I felt sorry for him since he had him for over 12 years, and to give my respect to him, his family, and Coco, I built his real-life dog Coco into Minecraft as a statue in Times Square, something that he can remember and cheer him up and his family for their loss. This was my first time building a dog statue in-game, and I'm glad how it turned out. And I showed him once he got back from Japan, and he was incredibly happy with the results. A remembrance of Coco, may you rest in peace. We are nearly finished with the whole plaza, but still more needs to be done. So I got started on a small bridge that will go over the driveway road, and I did the flower beds and filled them in with coarse dirt, including the fountain and placing other decorations around the fountain. I also marked out the spots where the trees and flowers will be later. Lastly, I pasted down the trees, and the reason why you did not see me placing the trees in the video, because it will ruin the replay recording, and sometimes it does not glitch out. So instead, I didn't record it and showed you the final touches I did with the plaza, and finally changing the wool on the trees to their proper leaves, and that's the entire city block done. Next is the grand finale, and that is the actual center of Times Square. And this will be my biggest challenge yet, so let's do it. The first attempt of building this skyscraper is that you guys know the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, right? Well, I was planning to build my first ever skyscraper that resembles the height and centerpiece of downtown Voxton, just like in real life San Francisco, although I didn't want to fully copy it either. So instead I found some good looking skyscrapers that seemed doable in game, and some I have tried to build from sketch. One was the Star River headquarters, a mix with the World Trade Center from New York City, at least where the antenna is. However, I tried a couple of times to see what it would look like in-game, but my problem was that I wasn't fully sure on how to build the top, and due to the restrictions on world height that limited my ability to build it, since the world only goes to 275 at most, and the rest is for underground projects that I'm planning in the future. And so instead I asked a few people to give their feedback on the Discord server, and one of them commented that it wasn't going to work and I should instead try something different. So on the second attempt, after trial and error of doing a couple of times, I finally gave in and did a polling for you guys to vote on which skyscraper you would like me to build. And many of you, over 60%, have voted for the Ugafa Securities Headquarters. I probably pronounced that wrong, so I'm sorry. But anyway, so thank you for those who voted, and more will come soon. Then on the third attempt, I have gotten started working on sketching it out, and although it was a difficult process since I had to do it a couple of times to see how it would look like and trying adding things that weren't going to work at the entrance design I wanted it to look like. So then, after that messy start, I finally got the right shape for the building, and now it's time to work on the lobby and soon the office itself. The overall process of the building was enjoyable to see everything built in Times Square, and I can't wait to see more of what it's going to look like in the future. But since you know this process of any office building I have built, I won't repeat myself and bore you to death. It was somewhat time consuming to stack the floors upwards, but it wasn't as bad though compared to my next building. When I finished with the lobby and office penthouse, it turned out great, and let alone doing the rooftop was also enjoyable, and I got it done pretty quickly. At last, adding the final designs of the building, added the glass facade, a few trees, and finished off the back part of the building, and now I can say the skyscraper is near complete. Near, you may ask? Well, yes, because I'm doing a southeast office building next to it to connect it by a skybridge. So let's get started on that, shall we? And the next part of this build is the one I despise the most. So the design for this selection, just like any city, you must have a second office building that is near or next door to your main building for whatever reason that I don't have the answer to, besides making room for more employment, and that's what I did. I researched and used Google Earth to find good inspiration for how I wanted my building to look. However, I couldn't exactly find one. I didn't want to do a simple rectangle one like in San Francisco, Chicago, or whatnot. So when I stumbled upon a residential building, high-rise from Florida, on Pinterest, had yet to be constructed at this time of this video, but it had been approved, so I thought it'd be perfect for the area that I could convert it into an office high-rise. The shape and size will allow me to put billboards, TVs, etc. on it, including having a skybridge connecting with the skyscraper I built earlier in the video. Immediately I got started on laying out the plans, and let me tell you, it was going great, and I planned out the bottom portion of the building since it was done, and then I got started on the interior layout, and that was somewhat easy but still difficult at the same time. It was hard to explain, but anyways, first I started with the lobby, including adding a small coffee shop in the corner of the building. Also added a small section of the building where people can walk through it, and a small section will be a AAA fast food restaurant with some seating and an entrance to the second floor and the parking garage, as you will see later in the video. Then the second floor was more of an entertainment / relaxing room for the employees. Once done, I moved on to doing the terrace by adding everything from pathways to trees, bushes, and flowers, and soon the tower itself. In my mind, it was going to be easy with some help from Mello. Everything was going to plan until I was completely wrong, and I knew it was going to take a while to fix the damage I did. When figuring out the size of the roof and looking closer at the reference, I saw that I made a mistake. The realization got to me that the tower itself and the bottom portion of it were too small, and I must redo everything. That frustrated me a lot that I could not explain. Now you may be asking why it was so skinny in the first place. Well, since the city was on a 1.5 scale, the tower itself was above the height limit in real life. I wanted to make the building in 1:1 scale. So the skyscraper I made earlier would be the tallest one in the district, for now anyway. So I had to resize everything from top to bottom, which would be the most frustrating that I have ever done on a building that I have experienced. Although partly it was my fault, since I should have sketched it the size of the tower from the top, then made my way to the bottom to see if I needed to make any adjustments instead of rushing, and was to focus on the building itself in 1:1 scale. I should have gone with my instincts and used the same I had done in my previous high-rises, but I had to pay the price. Indeed, the price I paid for. It has taken me days and late nights to around 3 a.m. to resize the building, move parts of the building, added more furniture, and fix everything from the office interior to the lobby itself. What made it worse was the word edit was being stupid in certain parts of the building, and when I tried to undo it, but instead it would undo it in parts, and some of those parts wouldn't move at all, thus making me want to punch my monitor. And I was really close to doing that, but luckily I was able to hold it off, and let's just say it wasn't a pretty experience. It was frustrating to the brim, and I'm glad my friend Mello was helping me with it, but it still took a lot of time and hours of the day to make a decent amount of progress. But slowly and surely, I was nearly done moving everything and building everything. I was so close to giving up on the building and restarting from scratch, or doing another building instead. But with help, not giving up on it, I kept pushing forward, and pushing forward I did. I got most of everything done, and now I'm moving on the tower itself to add glass facade and fix the interior even more by adding more office desks, balconies, etc. When it was nearly finished, my friend was doing the penthouse on top of where the large windows will be, adding a restaurant to see the Times Square view, and quite a view indeed. Since I have finished the glass facade, I have been looking on Pinterest to see any good designs for a Skybridge. And to be honest, there were a lot of good designs to choose from. And the things I wanted for my Skybridge were these 3 things. To have plants to look nice from a distance, to have it wide open with only the roof being either glass or plants hanging from the roof and the sides. However, I did find some great ones that could work between the 2 buildings. I couldn't decide on which one I should do, so instead I asked my drafters, which are a rank above builders, to see which ones I should do, and some said do a mix of the 2 bridges, and so I decided to choose the mix option. So when looking at the 2 buildings, I noticed they weren't aligned with each other, so instead at an angle, and it was challenging at first, but wasn't as painful compared to the real building itself. And honestly, it was quite refreshing to build it and have another friend, Egghog, which is another friend from Discord, helping me with it. But I truly wish we had glass slabs and stairs. It would have been so perfect for this type of project, but maybe in the future that will be possible. Nearly done, I just needed to fix the parking garage since I rearranged the building, and I need to do the same for the parking garage as well. But it wasn't as bad as I thought, and got it done quickly as well. Then I moved on to the white shield itself, the part that goes around the building. I don't know what it's called, but maybe one of you can research it to see what it's called, and feel free to comment below and I will favorite your comment. Anyways, that did take some time to do the white shield part all around the building, but I got it done pretty quickly as well, which I was doing as well. While I was doing that, my friend Mello was doing the screens. However, I'm going to have to replace the painting idea since I don't like how they disappear from afar. Instead, I will work on that later. The building is almost complete and I know it isn't perfect, but is damn complete in my eyes. Anyways, at last I added the same flooring as the skyscraper to represent the area as it is the part of the company. Then went to the side to add trees and plants and added seating for the public, including the 2 shops on the side of the building, and finally that's the whole complex. I am proud to say I'm glad I have completed it, and thanks to those who have helped me on this traumatic journey. Now it's time for the final piece of this district, which is this triangular shaped plot I have been saving for a very long time. Even though finding the right building was difficult, especially in this triangular area, luckily for me some exist in the real world. The most famous ones, for example, the Flatiron from New York City, and some in San Francisco too, and a lot more in other cities. So I wanted my district theme to have that look and feel, so I researched to find the perfect ones. I was going to do the famous triangular building from Oakland, since that's where my city is located anyway, but for one, I wanted to recreate that section in downtown Oakland soon when the city gets bigger, and having 2 would be weird in my opinion. And second, it would have been proven to be too difficult and too small for the area as well. Instead, a friend suggested that I should build the Times building in that spot, the original one from 1902. I believed it would be perfect for the area and it was large enough for the space. So I got started planning out of wall to try to see the spacing of each window and how much it would fit. And it was going well at first. Then I decided to not plan out the building out of wool since I wasn't completely sure of how the details of the building will look. So I deleted it and started again, and this time I'm doing the bombed portion first, then making my way up like how I usually do. However, what made it difficult was the color palette for this building, because I wanted to make it unique just like the historic building I did earlier. Like something that could exist in the city and probably could have existed in real life in Oakland or somewhere else. So I asked another friend of mine, Frankie, to help me find the right color palette, and although they were good options to choose from, I wasn't completely sure of how it would look when the building was completed. Instead, I built the bottom portion out of mango planks and stairs, and the top section will be granite for right now, temporarily. So then when it's done, I can replace the blocks with raw edit to see what the best blocks to use with mangrove wood. But I decided to keep the granite and mangrove wood when finishing the building later on. I continued with a lot of struggle because of everything I was building. I was using pictures with one low render 3D model, and it was beginning to frustrate me because it was becoming difficult to tell which parts stuck out and the ones that didn't. Although this had been days of recording that I've been working on, since I was taking a break in between and not yet having my head explode from the complexity of the building. But once I took my time and kept working on it, it started to look very nice and I was enjoying building again. Then once completed, I moved on to the actual tower, and I had some struggles, but not too extreme of course, to give it more of a classic outlook. I built the Times sign with the old photos you have seen when everything started to look good. I copied everything from one side to the other side and moved each section to the degree angle that it was on the side of the building. At last, I finished off the building by making the roof and the antenna And for the finishing touches, I added the US flag to finish it off completely. Now after the building is finished, it's time to do some ground decorations around the Times building. I added seats, some planters, and some other things to make the area feel more alive. I also did some stuff around Times Square, and Mel was working on the Times sign while I tried to make sure everything was perfect. Besides the wool that you see all over the place, but I am planning to replace the wool later on when the time is right and when I feel like it. Now it's time to do more details in Times Square, and I'm proud of how everything is turning out great so far, and there's still a lot to do. Like for one, I still need to do the street details and add my street props in the city center. So to do that, I made a small list of what I needed to do. To show you a couple, I must build the clock tower for the Times building. Second, add bus lanes onto the streets. Third, add the street props. 4, to do the sign logo for the buildings. And lastly, do the overhead wires for the trolley buses and trams. And much more that need to be done too. I hope you guys enjoyed the amount of work I put into these buildings, and hopefully it inspires you to do the same. All the information is linked down in the description. Make sure to check out our Discord channel, which is there too. And yeah, you all have a blessed day. See ya.